Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the AI Weekly Roundup, where we come with a couple really amazing guests each week to talk about all things AI, everybody's favorite topic. So I'm super excited to get into it with my guests today. Again, my name is Elena Kachan. I'm the Community Marketing Manager at Bloomreach, and I have my trusty guests here, Megan, who's been my co-host, my co-pilot rider with me for all of these episodes. So Megan, you want to kick off the round of introductions so we can go ahead and get into our juicy topic today.
Hi, everybody. You still can't get rid of me. I know you've been trying. I'm Megan Sklar. I am the digital and social media manager here at Bloomreach, and I'm so happy to have on the show today two of our colleagues. Number one is Anna.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Shirley. I am the Senior Manager of People Development and Culture here at Bloomreach. So within that, I also look after anything to do with our culture, values, diversity, equity, and inclusion work as well. So honoured to be here with you all today to talk about AI.
And I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Kate Spong. I'm a Senior Content Marketing Manager at Bloomreach, so I get to work very closely with Elena and Megan every day. Very lucky, I know. I am also very passionate about social justice. A lot of my formalized education revolved around those topics, so I'm actually on Bloomreach's DEI committee with Anna. And thank you so much for having me today, y'all.
I'm so excited. Y'all's experience, you guys are the perfect people to talk about this topic. So we're going to hit, obviously we all know after doing a couple of these episodes, AI is not perfect and still evolving. So that's why we continue to talk about it each week. But today we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to the ethics of AI and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm so excited that we have someone who's on the people team, and then also you, Kate, who has this experience in the formal education. And then obviously, Megan, you're in the trenches too. So I'm really excited to get into this. And with that, my first question is, and we'll kind of popcorn here a little bit, but how do you guys feel like we can address biases in AI systems to ensure fair and equitable outcomes for diverse user groups? I know that this kind of feels a little depthy, but maybe Anna, you can kick us off with an answer here.
Yeah, sure. So within the HR space, there's so many platforms, ever growing number of platforms using AI in various parts of our work, our workflow. I think the part of HR, the part of the people team that springs to mind most for me is in the recruitment process. And on the one hand, I think AI, generative AI and AI in general has a huge potential to reduce bias, increase objectivity in all of our decision-making processes when it comes to hiring new talent into the business, where we see things really can be really influenced by conscious or unconscious biases. For example, I've seen really cool use cases of AI when it comes to analyzing job postings, making sure that the language used doesn't discourage people from certain backgrounds or certain demographics from applying. And that can be even down to like very, very subtle, nuanced tweaks to the language that could be used. And I think AI can also help take some of that human bias out of patterns, trends, and all of those things in hiring patterns. And even when we talk about internal processes, promotion data, looking at pay, compensation equity, which is very, very important, of course. But I think the like ethical concern or the impact on DEI specifically is that if you're training your AI tools and platforms using data that in itself is bias, then the ways that AI will show up in your work will have these biases as well. So you need to be so aware of this, make sure that the data hopefully you're feeding in is limited when it comes to biases, but you also have this human element of assessing the work that you're leveraging AI for, and not just one and done. You're assessing this at regular intervals over time, because it may not be immediately visible, but if you looked back in 5 years, 10 years, have you slowly started to see shifts in the types of people that you're hiring or the types of people that are being promoted in an organization?
No, I love that. I was going to see if Kate, you had anything to add there, just because I do think that as we've seen in these episodes, like we still need humans to kind of regulate and oversee, just because AI does have these AI can help us avoid these unconscious bias, but it is telling us what it's learning from us. So what we feed it matters. Do you have a thought on this as well?
Yeah, just to kind of go, off of what Anna just said, I think part of addressing bias is just kind of recognizing, bias still exists. Like, even though we've made major strides, we can still see, like, especially in a US context, like how we've kind of regressed in certain ways. So while I think it's important to celebrate, how far we come, I think it's also important not to get distracted. We're seeing a lot of homophobic and misogynist legislation coming out in the US. Our Supreme Court basically just dissolved affirmative action. So, these kind of things are going to have impacts in the job market and kind of a trickle down effect. So we need to kind of make sure like AI doesn't perpetuate these problems.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Megan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So my background is actually in government. I worked in government organizations previous to my life in tech. And I think it just like we've seen with GDPR and CCPA, like as we make advancements in technology, it's so important for legislation to stay up to date and to counteract, maybe harmful legislation. People who are forward thinking, people who understand technology and understand the potential impacts really need to get involved. And so I think that's my big cry is tech leaders, like, get involved. You know what you're talking about. I think by having humans constantly intervening in the AI process, there's a review, and it's legislative review as well. So it's mandated that we have these checks and balances, just like we do in our government, with these technologies to make them, as fair as they can possibly be, and prevent overreach into sort of murky moral territory. I think that's my hill I'll die on. Get involved in government, local or national.
Absolutely. Didn't know that we were going to, I hope that this inspires people to get involved. I love this. So I guess to build off of that, and AI systems, obviously we just talked about like how we can get involved and how we can help avoid that. But how do we make sure that it covers a wide range of perspectives? So should there be clear guidelines on how we can use it? I know that we need the human oversight, but any thoughts around the guidelines and what we need to be teaching folks in terms of, what to feed it, what comes out of it? Anna, you want to help us out with that?
Sure. Yeah, I think what stands out to me is that it's so important, and Megan, I think you just touched on this as well in your answer, to establish clear guidelines, ethical guidelines, review processes for how you develop, deploy, and use AI throughout your day-to-day work and throughout all of the kind of day-to-day parts of our lives. I think at Bloomreach, we did this very well. So shout out to our legal and security teams. That's they're listening today, because we really did establish very quickly our internal policy documentation, like how do we want to work with AI at Bloomreach, but also how can we navigate what is a very risky and new to us territory in many ways. And I think the repeated, frequent communication on this has been really useful, making sure, for example, when someone new joins the business, that we make sure that they've read this, that they understand it as they go about their day-to-day lives. And the other piece that I was thinking here, and I read, I think Salesforce recently published like a list of that. I think it was like 5 steps for how they will use AI within their business. And I like the transparency there. And one thing that they said was, like, for us, honesty around AI is really important. So we're not coming to our clients and saying that we've done all of this work ourselves, or we've drafted this email ourselves, or whatever that may be, if we've leveraged generative AI for that. And I think that that's really important, because obviously as usage grows and it becomes more and more embedded in everything that we do, there are definitely some shadier parts of what it could be considered as.
I love that. Kate, do you want to add to that? I think that the transparency piece that you just mentioned is so important. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I totally agree about the transparency piece. I also, as you were kind of saying earlier, Elena, I think to make sure these systems are just and fair, that we always need to have an element of human intervention. I personally, as a content marketer, work with generative AI. We use Jasper on the team here at Bloomreach. And I'd be remiss to say, I enter some prompts and I get back a piece of content that is ready to go and publish in our CMS. I have to take that piece of content and make it more clear, make it more cohesive and complete, add that human element to it. And I just don't see AI doing that right now. Or, I can't predict the future, but we don't know if it ever will be able to pick up on these nuances of content creation and even DEI. So we kind of always have to expect to be involved somehow with it. And I'd love to hear what you have to say, Megan. I know you're working with it in the same kind of elements as I am.
Yeah, Kate is an amazing writer, one. And she doesn't even need AI, but it helps her be even more amazing at scale. I think in my perspective, yes, I always triple, quadruple check anything ChatGPT or another generative program gives me, just because they make silly mistakes. They sound unnatural still. I really like to have a human conversational quality to my writing. And so that's something it's still working on in my experience. And in terms of the question, I think giving everybody, almost to an exhaustive point, a voice in the conversation, and admitting, even though you might be a great ally for DE&I, you can say you don't know. You don't have the answer to everything. Let's bring in an expert who, we're representing people of different neurotypical abilities. We're representing people of different physical abilities. We're representing people of different races, ethnicities, religions, cultures, all the things. I think often we're scared to say we don't know how to be an ally, but I feel like that is a totally acceptable thing to say, because why wouldn't you want to bring in those voices from every corner of the earth to get a full representation of what the information we should be feeding AI looks like? Because there's a lot of bad information there out on the internet. And so I think really honing in on what's respectful to everybody's situation and to their culture and to their reality. It means amplifying other people's voices, sometimes over your own, even if you are an expert on, DE&I. I think leaders, and I feel like that over the past few years, it's really shown, like, you always have to be humble. You always have to listen to diverse perspectives. And so I think, yeah, being humble, being inquisitive, bringing in as many voices as possible to ensure that the conversation is well-rounded and the data and the things we're feeding into AI are truly representative of, all these folks.
I love that. That actually leads me perfectly. Thank you for teeing me up, Megan. Our next question, which I'm excited to get into, and we'll kind of round it out with this, but inclusivity. And like you said, having multiple perspectives from different walks of life, different cultures, religions, abilities and disabilities, things like that. AI is now free. So everybody has access to these resources, which is kind of unheard of, no matter what societal, where you stand in society. So adoption is really high naturally. But how can we make sure that the technology can help us move in the right direction, empowering these diverse people to be on a more level playing field and make sure that all of us are getting the same good information, and it gives you that leg up. So Kate, you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure, I'd love to. And I think Megan made some great points in the last question. So kind of going off what she said, I've read a lot of articles saying AI is the great equalizer. So I think it's kind of time to change our perspective on AI and stop looking at it so much as a glass half empty and more of a glass half full. So as a content marketer, I get it. I see the fear mongering on LinkedIn. There's a lot of rhetoric surrounding it. But that's the case with anything new and kind of unknown, right? So if we kind of look at AI as empowering diverse communities and leveling the playing field, it may be a little easier to accept it in our daily workflows. I myself, never really thought I would use it in my writing, but I've actually become a power user of our tool Jasper, and I've seen the capabilities firsthand. So maybe instead of looking at it as these tools as something that encourages plagiarism, maybe we should look at it as a resource for underprivileged and underserved communities, and something that can contribute to people's personal and professional development.
Totally. Like Google on steroids. Like now everybody just has access. If you don't know, ChatGPT might know. Anna, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I love everything that you just said there, Kate. I think from the way that I'm thinking about it, especially one part of my team and my role here at Bloomreach, and one of my passion topics is learning and development and making sure that people continue to have impactful career experiences both in and outside of work. And I think that I really see where we are now is like, this is a huge transformation that the world of work is going through, similar to how people spoke about this maybe when we were like in the dark days of the COVID pandemic as well. But this is fundamentally going to change most people's roles at some point, some more than others, some sooner rather than some sooner, some later, perhaps. But it is really important that we support everyone in this like reskilling of this transformation. And I think about it a little bit how in the like 90s, 2000s as well, we spoke a lot about digital literacy and making sure people were able to get online and use the internet. And it's similar here. It's fantastic. It's, as you said, it's free. And this has really set the tone for loads of other AI tools and products coming to the market, which have free versions or freemium versions that you can use, which is fantastic. But making sure that people can actually learn how to use them, especially when people aren't perhaps in an environment like we have, where there's so much chatter around this internally. We have Slack communities, we have lots of resources being shared, we have training programs available to us for this, and that's not the same for everyone, and we shouldn't assume that everyone has the same access to that. But at the same time, I think it's fantastic that, as you said, it's open access that is inherently inclusive, which is great. But obviously, we need to all now kind of be part of this transformation and understand what this can mean for us, for our careers, for those that we work with too.
Yeah, I feel like this is just the beginning. Megan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Just the possibilities are really exciting. I think it all goes back to really exciting possibilities, but we have to measure it with human involvement. We talk about plagiarism. That just requires oversight. I think the advantages shouldn't be limited by some kinks we need to work out with any new technology. I'm sure there were professors who were like, oh my God, I cannot, the computer is going to kill the way we do academia. And now it's really just expanded students' opportunities. You don't need to have a world-class library at every university because you have a world-class library on your phone now. And you can access research materials from all over the world. So really, I think just putting the measures in place to ensure people aren't using it for nefarious purposes, so we can enable people. I consider myself a big advocate, and I care deeply about elevating the voices and the perspectives of people who are not neurotypical. And I think this is a game changer for people who are not neurotypical in the workforce and education. These tools should really help them out in terms of like, if you feel awkward typing in professional speak, because it can be awkward, like it's very stilted, AI can teach you how to do that or transform what you want to say in a more quote unquote professional manner. I think that is a game changer for so many people and so many coworkers, colleagues we all have that we don't even know that that's something they're struggling with. This can make their lives so much easier. So that's something I'm very, very excited about. But again, with anything, making sure that we're being really intentional about our use of AI. I'm thinking about like, older jobs that were replaced when we, moved away from coal. Like, what can we do to ensure that the people who may get replaced by AI, or maybe we enable them with training so they become devs, they become engineers, they help run these AI oversight systems. I think it just all goes back to intentionality. And I feel like that's a thread that I've seen everybody here discuss, just being really intentional about how we're using AI, what oversight is needed, and sort of how we move into the future with it. They've all said amazing stuff. So thank you.
Totally. I think Bloomreach is really doing our best to, as a whole, kind of empower users to use it in the best way that they can, elevate their careers, be more proficient in those spaces, no matter what level you're at. So I'm really proud to be on a team where we take it very seriously and we are intentional. I didn't mean to like have such a Bloomreach plug there, but you guys were all so amazing, and I love the like diversity in terms of the levels of experience that we all have in different spaces. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts. These are supposed to be quick little bites. I know this is a really exciting topic, one that we hope you got inspired by. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, ladies, for joining me. But we will see you next week before the Edge Summit. Obviously, that is coming up at the end of the month, which we are excited about. So be sure to follow, share this, and we appreciate you tuning in. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.